Hey, welcome back to the Close Cover Podcast. We're so glad that you're joining us today. Make sure you check out our previous episode, our beginning launch. We're very excited to be with you. As we talked about last week, we are going to jump into some truths and misconceptions about what it really means to be a man, and just really dig in and I mean, for lack of better words, pour out our own hearts, our own experience, but it's based on the foundations of the Bible, the foundations of what Jesus has taught. And so we're glad that you're with us. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Go.
Too quick.
It's always awkward starting these things. But, you know, I was thinking whenever we were in church earlier this morning, this is the launch of our 24 days of prayer and fasting. And as pastor was talking about, you know, what fasting is, what it biblically means, and what the purpose of fasting is, I couldn't help but think that it kind of ties right into what we're talking about misconceptions of a man. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest misconceptions of what a man is that we have to take on every burden full on. We have to shoulder it, and that it's our responsibility to find a solution, to navigate our way through whatever it is. And it's not, you know. Yeah. Are we probably the primary person that's going to lead that charge in our household physically? Yes. And kind of like but in the prayer and fasting, whatever it is that we're fasting, the purpose is when we feel that urge to break that fast or to do whatever it is that we're trying to fast, whether it be food, whether it be social media, whether it be energy drinks, whether it be alcohol, whatever it is, when we feel that urge to do that, the purpose of that fast is that we separate ourselves from, you know, our flesh, and that we go to God, and that we talk to God, and that we ask for His strength, and that we ask for His guidance to get through that. And that the purpose of that fasting is that we do build that relationship that we talked about, you know, in the first episode with Jesus. And I think that ties right into that misconception that we have to shoulder everything as men on our own. Right. Are there a lot of things that we've been able to do on our own? Are there a lot of things that we've been able to accomplish on our own? There are, but it's to a certain extent. Right. And we're going to fail at some point. And if we go to God, and if we continue that relationship with Him and that conversation with Him, He has His ways of guiding us. He has His ways of talking to us. He has His ways of opening doors for us or shutting doors for us. Yeah, right. And letting us know, no, you can't go that way. But I think that building that relationship and having that understanding that we weren't designed to do this on our own, that we weren't designed to navigate life in general on our own, and that we are to lean on Jesus. To figure those things out is a very big misconception that, you know, many men out there think that they have to do.
Short verse, John 3:30. He must become greater, I must become less. Mm-hmm. And it's that whole notion of how do we become less within that power. When we're taught everything in life is about the power we present in the situation, right? It's not about us. It's not about our power. It's not about what we can present or control or manipulate or maneuver, you know? But it's also that ability, like you mentioned in our talk last week when we were discussing it, the ability to ask for help and realizing that Father is there for that coverage and help. And not being too prideful to ask, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a turning point in every boy to man's life where they learn finally for the one moment to say, man, I can't do this on my own. But it's like, where are we going for that help? Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. And, you know, I was thinking, John said, you know, some things we tend to do on our own. like for me, it raises a question of how much better would it be if I didn't do it on my own?
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, there's so many cliche. Oh, God gave me broad shoulders so I could carry blah, blah, blah. Like there's all kind of like manly cliche things that get thrown out there to basically excuse my ability to need somebody to help me. And that being God. And so it's like, oh, I got this. And the misconception that that's what God wants. He wants me to be able to carry it on my own. And, it's not true. It's like he wants us to lean on him. He wants us to depend on him. He wants us to press in. And, you talked about fasting, and I was, I want to say it was like, maybe it was prayer on Tuesday or something. We were there and, we're going through steps and different things, and I'm kind of sitting, I'm writing things in my journal, and it's like, okay, I think for most people, like you're looking, okay, God, what's next? We're going into this season, and fasting is not about what I can get out of it.
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it creates an atmosphere of expectation for something new, something greater, something deeper, something bigger, whatever. Okay, God, I'm looking forward to what's next. And I'm sitting there, kind of jotting some things down. And what I felt just kind of pop up in my heart was, you can't pick up anything new while you're still holding on to the old. It's like your hands are full, whether they be your physical hands, your spiritual hands, whatever, they're full. And so something has to be laid down. Something has to be put down before I can pick up something new. And recognizing, man, this is something I don't need, or this is something from seasons past or whatever. And so it's really got me questioning, where as men, we want to pick up everything. I got that. Yeah. I can carry that.
Keep throwing it.
And it just doesn't work.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. It really is.
Well, and sometimes it's the fact of looking around you and having people in your life that could sit there and say, hey, John, man, it doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work for you. Jason, man, next time try and land on somebody else's foot.
I did land on somebody else's foot.
No foot.
No foot.
I landed
at
on
all.
somebody else's foot.
I had to throw that in there with your broken foot, but
yeah, it's what got me in this predicament.
right. But Proverbs 27:17, I believe. Iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. And man, it resonates. It's like you can't do things self-reliantly. And one, it's lean on me. Is Christ in me, right? Lean on me. Let me be your father. Let me lead you through that. But also, we've talked about the spiritual Paul and the Timothy, looking for those people in our lives that we could communicate with.
Yeah.
And one, that holds us accountable to it too. It's finding people that just know and recognize what you are chasing is true, and they're willing to stand by you in it.
Yeah.
So
I know that that verse gets used so much.
Yeah.
And but now correct me if I'm wrong. A sharpening process is a removal of material from a blade. That's the part guys hate.
Well,
When you start rubbing against me and you want to take things off of me,
right.
then that's where the uncomfortableness happens, and accountability partners and all of those things fall away, because it's like, man, why are you getting in my business?
Right.
And that sharpening is meant to be. I actually had a friend of mine tell me one time I was abrasive, and I'm like, oh, thank you. They're like, I don't mean it in a bad way, but you push in a way that removes the excess, because that's what you're doing when you're sharpening a knife or an axe or whatever. There's a removal of useless material. And that's uncomfortable for our flesh people.
I think, and it took me a while to kind of understand it. And have you ever watched the TV show Forged in Fire?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Forged in Fire is an awesome show. But when you're watching that and they're forging those blades out of iron and they're sharpening those blades out of iron, it's loud. Mm-hmm. It's noisy. You know, there's a lot of hammering. Whenever they put it up there and they start polishing it and shining everything, it's not quiet. And I think that we need to realize that when we do, and I think this is what you're saying, when we do sharpen each other, it's not always pretty.
No.
It's not always fun, and it's not quiet. Like, we have to be abrasive. You have to have that friction, and you have to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations with those guys that are close to you to be able to do, like you said, like, hey, man, you're going down the wrong path.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's not going to work for you. And, you know, if you keep going down that path, this might be what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we need that. Like, we need that tribe. You need even if it's just 2 or 3 guys, even if it's just 1, you know, if you've got that one guy that, you know, you can pick the phone up and say, hey, man, I'm struggling with this. And I need to talk to somebody about it. He's
got your back.
You know, that's how we sharpen each other. That's how that iron sharpens iron work. And it needs to be somebody that is biblically sound. And I think we touched on that before in the last podcast, whenever you need to have that person that is your mentor, and that has the wisdom and has the knowledge to be able to correct you, has the ability to educate you, in what it is that you're doing in the direction that you're going. And that's not easy to find. And as a guy with pride, kind of like you said before, it's hard sometimes to go to another guy and be like, hey, I can't handle this right now. Like, I don't know what to do. I need counsel. Like, I need a brother. I need somebody to stand there next to me and help me through this. Yeah. It's not easy.
Well, I mean, so like when we were talking about this topic, I wrote down some stuff, and, you know, like I have to name things, and then I think about them forever. I know it's weird, but like, this is the guy that I called the Macho Man. And everybody just pictured Randy Savage, and that's fine. But it's like this is a person that's too tough to express emotions. Mm-hmm. But like, I think, again, it's a learned behavior. It's something that we saw from our dad's generation and our grandparents' generation, where it was like, there's no emotion. There's no vulnerability. There's no, it really is like that, a misconception that if I show any form of vulnerability, weakness, blah, 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 whatever, well, then I'm less of a man. And to get into a place where you're an iron sharpening iron person, it takes you being able to be vulnerable. It takes you being able to tap into emotion. It takes you being able to express yourself, you know, more than how much I can lift or how much I can, you know, blah, 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 whatever, pick some other manly activity. I could build a fire with a stick and I don't know, a match. And even then I'm not good at building fires, but you know what I mean? And like, that macho man mentality that we've grown up learning is really a misconception of how men are supposed to act. It hinders, especially in a fatherhood environment where you're trying to raise kids. There's no connection with your kids, and then they learn to be emotionally stunted like you are, like we are at times, because that mentality that I got to take on the world by myself is prevalent and has been taught and conditioned. And so that's really That's what popped up in my head when we were talking about.
It's the whole rub some dirt on it, right? Every time we got hurt when we were kids, it's like, go rub some dirt on it, or you're safe. It was, what distraction could you pull to get you away from the pain that you're actually feeling? And sometimes you're supposed to feel pain, right? Because pain.
But there is a time and a place.
Well, yeah. I think there's balance.
There definitely is balance. And like, there's a time and a place where you do have to pick yourself up, put some dirt on it, and keep pressing forward. You know, but I think that there's a difference between picking yourself up, rubbing some dirt on it, and moving forward, and not being able to admit that you need help.
Which every single one of us at this table will struggle with.
Oh, I think
we could say that 100%.
And have, you know, have at different points in time where, you know, whether it be family, whether it be finances, whether it be job situations, whether it's like at some point you need help.
Right.
It's, I mean, we have a facade that we should have an armor on in every situation. And if we show weakness, then that's a chink in our armor. And it's a way for somebody to get into our head or get behind us or manipulate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're taught, right?
You can't give them a way in.
Right.
But I think also some people put that title of weakness on the wrong characteristics and qualities that a man has.
Sure.
Because asking for help is not a weakness. That's a strength. Right. You know, anybody that, like, whenever I see somebody that is like just running into that brick wall over and over and over again, and they're refusing to ask for help, that's not strength to me. Like, I look at that person and I go, man, like, if you would just ask for help, you could get that done. That's the strength. The weakness is continuing to do that thing over and over when you know that you're not going to be able to accomplish it, you know? And I think for a long time, society has taken that term weakness and they've put it on certain qualities and characteristics whenever it shouldn't be there. And I think that there are a lot of guys that are out there right now, you know, that feel the same that we do and that are putting it out there. Jocko's one of them. You know, he's come out with the book Extreme Ownership. You know, it's our nature to not own up to things. It's our nature that when we mess up to kind of just drift back from it and I didn't do that, you know, or that wasn't me. You see it in your kids, you know, they naturally try, but a man, when he messes up, he owns it. Right. Like, he steps forward and goes, that was my mistake.
100%.
You know, I own that mistake, and anything that happened as a result of that mistake is my responsibility.
So, I mean, I just had this conversation. We talk about it with our kids all the time. Every single one of us. I mean, you talk about it. Hey, the consequences are a lot worse when you don't own it, right? And it's kind of the salt and the light situation. When it's in the light, things could be blessed. We've talked about that. But what that means and what we say that means is when things are brought out, one, it lifts the burden off your shoulders. So you don't have a constant, like, anxious feeling about what's going to happen when it comes to fruition, where somebody does learn it, because it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be 5 years from now, but your closet's going to be wide open at some point.
There's consequences to everything that you do.
So why not bring it out there and get through it? And with our kids, it's that discipline of, like, hey, we're going to find out. One, we've lived with you for this long. We've seen you your whole life. We know your tendencies and how you lie. So we're going to figure it out.
And we were there.
Yeah.
We did the same thing.
And we've done it.
Right. We've done a lot of stupid, and we tried to hide a lot of things and do those things. But it's like, you know, hey, the consequence is going to be greater if you wait, if you hold it in. Just tell us. Just get it out there. And that's in work. That's in everything we do all the time. You know, I manage people. Own your mistakes. I mean, the only way you're going to learn is if you own it, right?
Well, and I think with that too, like, the next step is not only own it, but what are you going to do to fix it?
Right.
Or what can you do
That's the
to fix
process.
it? Because, at 10 years old, your mistake, while it seems terrible to you, you getting grounded, you getting blah, 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 whatever, your punishment phase. At 30 years old, that mistake has far-reaching consequences that it doesn't at 10. And the understanding that consequences only get worse
Yeah.
the older you get, because your responsibilities are greater, all of those things. And so it's like, when I mess up now as a dad or as a husband or whatever, and have to own that, which is uncomfortable. But, it's also counterculture too, because somebody else's fault, somebody else's, whether it's victim mentality, whether it's poverty mentality, whether it's whatever, there's a reason why I'm here. And it's not me, it's somebody else. But like, when you own it, and then if I have to go to my wife and say, hey, I made a mistake. I paid this, or I took this money out for this, or blah, 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 or whatever, or I made this decision about this or whatever, and it wasn't good. But here's how I'm going to fix it. Here's how I'm working on it. Whether that's more discussion with her before I do something dumb, and try not to do something dumb. But whatever, it's like, it's that next step of really, to me, it's like, a man you'll mess up, but the real test is, what are you doing to fix it? Do you have something moving forward? And I think that's where your tribe comes in. And you're talking about falling down and rubbing some dirt on it. I feel like I don't have to fall as far if I've got somebody that's standing next to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially now, I'm looking at a broken foot. Dude, I had to go pee last night, and it's very uncomfortable to try and get up and move around. And so I've got my crutches, like, a little recliner thing, and I'm reclined back, and the big bar's behind me because I'm staying in the living room, and I've got my crutches leaned up over here, and it's like 3:00 in the morning. I gotta pee, and I'm like, oh, and I'm not gonna wait because I move slow on the crutches anyway. And so I reach for my crutches, and they fall over. Like, they fall over. Nobody's awake. I'm in the living room by myself. Honey, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I had tried to call my wife the day before at like 4:00 in the morning because I needed help. Something, blah, blah, blah. She didn't answer the phone. And I'm like, oh, what the heck? I'm stuck. So anyway, my crutches are on the floor. And I have to like weasel and lean over where I can grab them and bring them around. And again, it's 3:00 in the morning. I just woke up. I have to pee. Not really have to pee because I had to figure out how to get those crutches off the floor. It knocks stuff off of the bar, everything. I get them. I'm standing up, and like a wobble, I put my crutch on something, or I didn't put it down right. And to stop myself, instinct goes, I put my other foot down so I don't fall over. Wrong answer. Instantly, I pick my foot up. I'm still off balance. I kind of fall back and let myself sit and land on the couch. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But, I that's kind of like my picture of, it would have been better if somebody was standing next to me. I don't have as far to fall. And so that idea of, men being able to be vulnerable and say, look, I need some help. Just like how y'all got me here. I need some help. I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. And when somebody says that to you, being that stable person because we're all going to do things that throw us off balance, or not even us do them. Life happens.
Right.
And we're thrown off balance by circumstances that are outside of our control. But having that support system that knows you, understands you, loves you, prays for you, you know that they're on your side. It's not as far to fall when you got people next to you that you can that you know are there to hold you up.
And that's also the people around you doing their part too, because that's where we also fall short as men. And, you know, it's funny because people make fun of buzzwords in a church, like intentionality. But as a man, it's also on us to look at a brother and be like, hey, man, and just reach out of the blue. You okay? You doing all right? Mm-hmm. And just talk. I mean, how often do we always want to pick up the phone and have a conversation with our buddy on the other line, right? Just to check on them. I mean, it's not in our nature, you know. But you look at your wife and she's like, "Oh, I'm just checking on my girlfriend, you know, making sure she's good."
Oh, yeah. They talk all the time.
They do that, and you're like, "Man," but realistically, it's something that we all long for, is people to want to care for us too, right? Even though we're supposed to do everything. And because it's also the fact on the flip side of that coin, when you do get hurt and you can't do all the things you normally do around the house, your son comes up, well, dad normally does that.
Yeah.
Some of the things we do without anybody asking. That
I
just
had a
goes
bunch of
unnoticed.
kids, so I didn't have to do things around the house. That was part of my...
And I also think that sometimes it takes that extreme thing to happen for us to realize
Yeah.
that we need to do that. And unfortunately, we deal with it in my career field because suicide happens. And when it does, it's kind of like a gut check. Like, man, am I the one that was supposed to make that phone call?
Yeah.
Should I have been the one that was checking on them? And it's a responsibility that we all have. And it's sad sometimes that it takes that extreme thing to happen for us to realize that we are accountability partners, that we were designed and we're here to take care of each other. And I see that a lot, like in our work with the way that we format things. Like, we always have a second person that's there. If it's putting an op together, you have a case agent and you have a co-case agent. So you have that second person there to go over everything that you're doing, to look for inconsistencies, mistakes, things that, you know, you've been staring at it so long that it doesn't jump out at you. But when that second person comes along and evaluates that plan that you're putting together, they can look at it and go, hey, I think you missed this over here.
Yeah.
You know, so having that accountability partner, having that running mate, is important.
It was in my head.
Do what?
I said that word was in my head too, running mate.
Running mate?
I just want a walking mate. I don't want to run.
But if you look at in a lot of things that we do naturally in our jobs, you have those accountability partners there with you. We've got like procedures that we go through when we put ops together that there are probably 4 to 5 sets of eyes that go over a document or a piece of paper that we're going to put forward before it actually, you know, is sent in for that final signature, right? There are multiple people looking at it. And if I'm putting something together, but I need these little things done on the side while I'm focused on this, I have my co-case agent for that. Like, hey, can you go and take care? Can you organize these things for me? Can you make sure that this is loaded up? Can you make sure that that equipment is ready? And I think that applies to our life, you know, that we're not meant to shoulder everything on our own, and that it's not weak to ask somebody, hey, help me out with this. Like, that's intelligent. Right. It's smart, and it's the right way to do things.
Well, in I'll say you're 10 times out of 9 from last time. Enabling people around us, we don't tend to do it more based on our fear than anything. As a man, it's more of us fearing somebody taking our position based on the knowledge we have to progress.
Right.
And it, you know, it doesn't go to the Lord mentality. It doesn't go to the survival of the fittest. It doesn't go to you're the master of every domain, right? It goes to the fact of what are you really holding on to? Right?
Yeah. You know, it really, I know in the church world where, you know, I've served and been a part of teams and different things, it's again, to a buzzword, it's counterculture to train somebody to take your job.
Yeah.
But biblically, the way that you should lead, it's like that's discipleship. It's like, I want to bring you up to where I'm at.
Right.
Not that you're deficient or whatever, I want to bring you up to where I'm at, because when you get there, I can go on and do the next thing that God has called me to do. And it's like, there's always a next progression.
Right.
And so, but pride does make us hang on to stuff. Like, no, this is my spot. Well, if I'm doing what the Bible says to do, then I should be training. I should be equipping. Right. I want you to fill my shoes, because God has other shoes I need to put on somewhere. Right. And if you're in that Paul and Timothy model, then somebody is training you or working with you, or you're growing in a way with somebody where your next is available. And so for me, it was always, once I got kind of past that hurdle a bit, it's exciting, because I know that God has something more, not more, but something else.
Well, we talk about true masculinity is reflecting Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And we had that as a point of something to talk about today, because, here it is. Let me bring these people to my table. They're all welcome. No matter what point they're at in their life, no matter what point anybody is at in their life that surrounds us, they're welcome to the table. But we also just need to reflect the light that's in us, right? And that is what God gives us. That's what the Holy Spirit's presence in us is. That's what we believe through Christ Jesus, and what he died on the cross for us is to be a reflection of that. And let's break bread. Let's invite you to gain the knowledge you need to, do this project better, work harder, get further. Don't take on the burdens on ourselves, because that's where we lock it out. We push out the light and we grab darkness and close it in. And that's where we're teetering all the time. But I would say the biggest grip of it for us is the fear of failure, the fear of somebody passing us up, the fear of, somebody looking over our shoulder at everything we do. It's just, you don't need that.
Yeah.
You don't.
I had a talk with one of my boys relatively recently, because fear of failure.
Yeah.
Especially we were going back our last podcast too, where we were talking about your perception of Father God is based and created a lot of times by your earthly experience with a dad, with a father figure. And like it does something to you. It creates a reality. It forms your perception of what's true and what's untrue.
Yeah.
And, I've struggled over the years with, different jobs and different, well, why didn't I do that? And why didn't I do this? And all of those kind of things. And at some point, it's like when I start really looking at stuff, a fear of failure continued to come up. And so I would settle for something that I knew,
right,
that I knew I could be successful at, instead of really risking and reaching out and, or chasing a dream that's bigger than what I could imagine. You know what I mean? Without a guaranteed success. It's like I settled and settled and settled and settled. And, God has blessed me along the way, because I'm trying to follow all of the things that, he wants for us to do in the process. But it's like, fear of failure set a limit on what I was comfortable reaching for.
Right. And there's a point in there too. It's we're good with settling, because there's a point where people are like, I'm good at being good at a bunch of things. You know, that's good. I'm good. But what are you supposed to be great with?
Yeah.
I think there's a saying that says something like, good enough is the greatest enemy of excellence, you know,
Yeah.
because we get
Something. That's
satisfied.
perfect.
Or
We
good
get,
is the enemy of great.
But good enough is the perfect enemy of excellence. I
Right.
actually,
it's
that
something
whole
along
thought.
those lines, but
It
I
could
mean,
be
it's
your
basically laying
Yeah.
down exactly what you're saying. Like we get complacent, we get comfortable, and we don't push ourselves because, you know, where I'm at right now is good enough. I'm able to pay my bills. You know, my wife's happy. My kids are in a good school.
Right.
You know, I drive a decent car. You know, we eat well. It's good enough.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that's not what God has in plan for us. Maybe that's not what God wants, but we have a tendency to not push ourselves out of that comfort zone, because it's scary, right?
We're doing it now on YouTube because
Well,
this isn't something
This is-
Right.
in all of our podcast formats. Like, there's no guarantee of success.
No.
And so this for me has become one of those, like, all right,
Yeah.
this is what I feel like we're supposed to do, and I'm not going to settle for less than.
And unapologetically, we're going to be judged regardless, and that's okay. Like, people are going to have their opinions, and you know, we said flat
Jeff
out,
said he's okay with it. You can judge him.
yes,
Not
all the feelings my way. But that's it. You just got to know, and that is part of, you know, when you talk about being a man, it's not just being a man, it's part of life. Like, you got to learn that some things are going to be said. You're not going to like every single portion of it, but you got to learn from every single bit of it, right? And what lesson are you willing to take? And the people that have a tendency to just be comfortable stopped learning a long time ago.
Yeah, they get stagnant.
Yeah. So
But if you have something that you truly believe in, like you said, you're gonna make enemies along the line. People are not going to agree with what you agree with. People are going to judge you. They're going to misconstrue things that you say or beliefs that you have, and you can't worry about that. If you know the truth, if you know the path that God is leading you down, you need to have faith in Him. You know, not in what somebody else's opinion is, but have faith in Him and that He's directing you the right way, and that you know that the ultimate goal at the end is for His greater good. You might not be able to see it at the beginning, you know. He put on my heart years and years and years ago at a men's conference at Gateway, this that we're doing right here. I didn't know exactly what it was when He put it on my heart. And to tell you how long ago it was, I had a Samsung Galaxy Note. And I was literally taking notes in that thing while we were doing that. And I wrote down, you know, that He, in the words that I heard was that He wanted me to basically start my own business, but a business that worked for His kingdom. And I had no idea what that meant, you know. Yeah. And at the time, I was, 10 years into my law enforcement career. And I'm like, are you asking me to walk away from something that I've invested a lot of time in, like with a pension? Is that what you're asking? Like, that's terrifying, you know.
Get thee behind me.
And the more that I pressed into it and the more that I prayed about it, He wasn't asking me to walk away from anything, but I think He was preparing me for something that was further down the road. And He had put certain people into my life. Like, you didn't come in. How long have we known each other? Less than a year.
I think we just pretty much hit a year. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I mean, but even with, like, I think we all have similar, like, I've been looking at, like, I have 9,000 podcast topics. I mean, over the last, like, 3 years. Like, I could talk about this, or I could talk about that. And, like, and nothing panned out. And then a year ago, you know, we move where you guys are at. We moved to Vertical Chapel, and the next thing I know, I've got 2 different guys going, I mentioned podcast, and 2 different people said, we need to talk to you. And so it's like both people showed up, and I hadn't mentioned podcast at one time to one person at Vertical Chapel. And the next thing you know, it's like, what are these people talking to me about podcasts for?
Right.
And so it was like, yeah, there's like that preparation time that okay, I need to grow, I need to be ready.
Right.
And
well, I can tell you right now, whenever he first put that on me, if I had jumped in 100% right then and there, I'd have fallen flat on my face.
Right.
Because it wasn't his timing. I wasn't the person that I am now. Things just hadn't come together for it to happen at that time. And when he opens that door, it is very clear that he's opening that door and what it is that he wants you to do.
It's funny too, because we talked last time about audible, inaudible voices,
right,
and how things are spoken to you. And one thing about being a man is some things are too dumb and cheesy to listen to, right? so that's
I say those words a lot.
Yeah, but sometimes we're saying that to God, right? Where it's funny because even in situations where you're seeking him speaking to you or telling you to do something, a lot of the time we sit there and we're like, well, that's messy, it's hard. Like those are hard things. But when it becomes easy and flawless and it just comes together, then you're like, yeah, we heard right. And that's our story of sitting at this table right here.
Well,
right?
I mean, even with that though, it's like, we recorded our first episode, and I'm looking at, I remember I heard, I don't remember who said it, and if I find it, I'll make sure we get the little clip in the comments or something like that. I don't know how any of that stuff works. It sounded good. Somebody's going to do it. Yeah, we got Mr. Grayson take care of us. But having so many irons in the fire that you put the fire out. You know what I mean? And it's like, as men, we just like, oh yeah, I can do that, and I can do that, and I can do that. And it's like, it's too many things. You're putting your fire out, your ability to facilitate all of these things. And so we're coming in to record, and we got our spouses together. We've prayed together. We've had multiple confirmations from spiritual, or like our leadership and all of those kind of things. And even still, I'm walking into the first one going, okay, God, I need you to confirm this. I need you to make this solid in me, because time, effort, blah, 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 all of those things that it's going to take.
And Jeff is a little weird.
To that I'm not worried about. But you know what I mean? It's like, I'm looking at reality now. Hey, I've got to go somewhere. I've got to record. We've got to get together. We've got to loosely plan what we're going to talk about. Right. And it's like, this is going to be work. As much fun as it is, it's going to be work. And it's like, okay, God, I've seen all of these confirmations, but I need you to settle it in me. Yeah. And I felt like that first session was going to be like, okay, it's either, man, that was a great idea, but it's not yet, not now, not right, whatever, or shoot, baby, take off. And I'm happy it was the take off, this is right. But it's like there was a settling in me, even all the way till the last minute of, okay, God's going to continue to confirm along the way. And we get 1 billion subscribers. It'd be awesome. If not, and the message gets out to who it needs to get out to,
it's still worth it.
It's it's important.
Yeah, that image of Christ, he left the 99, right, to get the one.
Oh, I've been the one so many times. But I think with that,
we could laugh about stories and tell those in a blooper reel, probably.
It gives us a great picture, because we're talking about some misconceptions, and the truth side, the picture that we have from Jesus, from God the Father, is a life of service, a life of sacrifice, a life
Right.
of love, a life of pulling people together, a life of, all of these pictures that he paints are how we're supposed to be as men. It's how we're supposed to, the foundations we're supposed to
Right.
lay, that we're supposed to build our life on the example he set for us.
Right.
From the greatest among you being the servant, from his literal picture of giving up everything, even to his last breath,
Right.
for us, for salvation and those things. And sadly, in this day and age, it's what can I get for me,
Right.
not what can I lay down.
So
And-
that